Here today because you know that there's been a lot of talk in the news at the local, state, and national level about MS-13 and the public safety threat posed by MS-13, not just MS-13, but all street gangs. Here in the Harris County, City of Houston area, we have over 20,000 documented gang members, and we know that a big part of our violent crime is driven by these folks. And I'm very proud as a police chief here in Houston of working in a region where our federal, state, county, and local partners, as well as our federal prosecutors and our county prosecutors, have all worked together to work in unison to combat the scourge of violent street gangs that are really the cause of, I think, the degradation sometimes of a feeling of safety here in this region. And I'm going to go over real quickly about this case that brought us here. I'll give you a quick rundown. Say a couple words about it, and then I'm going to turn it over to the FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Doug Williams, who will turn it over to Commander Steen from DPS, and then our prosecutor, our great DA, will back clean up, and then we'll open up for questions. But in November 2015, MS-13, the Salvadoran gang known as Mara Salvatrucha, which again, MS-13 began targeting the local Chicano gang, the Southwest Cholos, in order to take over criminal enterprises and control of criminal enterprises and basically a territory in the southwest area of Houston. Over the next several months, MS-13 was responsible for 6 homicides with Cholo gang members and the attempted murder and the aggravated assault of numerous others. The Houston Police Department's Homicide Major Offenders Division and the Federal Bureau of Investigation joined forces to identify and arrest the MS-13 gang members responsible for these murders. During the course of this investigation, detectives were able to cultivate a witness named Estuard Quinones. Estuard Quinones was able to provide information to detectives, which assisted in the arrest of 7 MS-13 gang members who were believed to be responsible for the 6 homicides. Gang members discovered that Estuard was a witness in those cases, and an order to assassinate him was given by Omar Torres from the Harris County Jail. Sadly, on June 13, 2016, Estuard Quinones, our witness, was lured out to Buffalo Run Park in Missouri City, where he was shot 27 times. Detectives quickly responded, and during the subsequent investigation, charged Omar Torres and 4 other suspects with capital murder for the assassination of our witness, Estuard Quinones. A capital murder warrant was issued for Douglas Herrera Hernandez, a.k.a. Terror, for the murder of Mr. Quinones. He fled the state, and fortunately, one of the things that happened after he fled the state, one of our patrol officers, I don't know if he's here, Officer Gerald Reamer, is he here? Where you are, Officer Reamer? Come on up here. Officer Reamer, one of our patrol officers who works down in the Clear Lake area, took a personal interest, knowing that these crimes were heinous, knowing that these people were extremely dangerous, and he actually started canvassing a local apartment complex and was able to identify witnesses that led us to the location of this suspect, this killer, who was on the loose. So I just wanted to call you up today. We'll recognize you another day, but in front of all your colleagues here, just tell you for great police work. It's not about title, it's not about assignment, it's about heart, mindset, and an absolute interest in bringing justice to our community. So I just want to congratulate you, and we're going to, again, acknowledge you again. You're my hero, brother. I guarantee you probably saved lives as a result of your work. So let's give him a big hand, everybody. Welcome. Don't go too far. He's very... So anyway, thanks to our officers' good work, we were able to locate where the suspect was at. Then with the help of the task force, the FBI, obviously, DPS, and all of our task force members, we were able to find this character and arrest him in Virginia. Houston PD homicide detectives went to Virginia, interviewed Herrera Hernandez, and were able to obtain a statement which implicated 2 more individuals in the capital murder of Estuard Quinones. With the assistance, again, of the FBI, detectives were able to bring back Herrera Hernandez back to Texas. Agencies involved in this investigation were HPD Homicide, HPD Major Offenders, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Public Safety, ICE, and again, because of all the political theater out there where you got political leaders trying to say that we don't work with ICE. It's absolute hogwash. ICE worked with all of our colleagues like they do on a regular basis and helped us in this investigation. In the District Attorney's Office from both Harrison and Fort Bend counties, and obviously we're very proud of our partners with the Missouri City PD, that again, it's not about jurisdiction, it's not about organizational pride, it's about I think a singular focus on bringing these bad actors off of our streets. And so today I just want to say, before I turn it to the next speaker and then we'll open up the questions later, is that this again is an absolute example of how we here in Harris County are working together collectively, all agencies across all jurisdictions, across all levels of government, to focus on one thing, and that's to make the people of Houston, Harris County, and our region safer. So I want to personally thank everybody for the partnership. Obviously, the prosecution will will move forward, and as far as I'm concerned, when you shoot and murder and execute a witness and you shoot them 27 times, you know, we're the state of Texas, and I can just say that we have a place nearby that I hope that whatever the worst consequence that we can offer will be on the table by our prosecutors, because we have to send a message. When you take a life that brutally, especially one that's of a witness that had the courage to come forward, you've really forfeited your right, once you're tried and convicted, to remain on this planet Earth, as far as I'm concerned. So with that, I'll turn it over to Special Agent Doug Williams. And he's not the football player, Assistant Special Agent in charge.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon. My name is Douglas Williams. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI here in Houston. MS-13 gang members and their associates pose a significant threat in the United States because of the gang's emphasis on gruesome violence, which was just described by the Chief, their international network,
criminal gang has been identified by DPS and recognized by our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners as a significant threat to the safety of the citizens of Texas. Due to its growing numbers, its recruitment effort, especially among juveniles in our school system, their transnational criminal ties, and its members' almost insatiable appetite for extreme violence, the MS-13 remains a Tier 1 threat, the greatest threat possible in the Texas Gang Threat Assessment that was released by DPS just a few weeks ago. To meet these growing threats, law enforcement also continues to step up our efforts with enhanced collaboration and cooperation between partner agencies, growing participation in the successful Texas Anti-Gang and the Multi-Agency Gang Task Force, and the assignment of additional DPS resources to combat gang activity in this area. we are all together proudly bolstering our ability to effectively combat this threat. We are able to combat this threat in the local communities, across the state, across the nation, and in working with our federal partners, our efforts can even extend around the globe. The investigation that we're here for today, which stretched from Houston, Texas to Arlington, Virginia, and resulted in the arrest of Douglas Alexander Herrera Hernandez, is evidence of the success of multi-agency collaboration. The hard work and diligent efforts of the special agents, officers, detectives, investigators from each of the participating agencies, they are to be commended. Rest assured, the Texas Department of Public Safety, along with our local, state, and federal partners, will be relentless, not just in going after MS-13, but any other criminal gang or organization that poses a threat to the safety of the citizens in the state of Texas. We thank you for your interest and support of professional law enforcement. And now I'll turn it over to the District Attorney.
Thank you, Commander. Afternoon, everybody. I'm Kim Ogg. I'm your elected district attorney here in Harris County. And along with John Healy in Fort Bend, our offices will be responsible for the prosecution of these violent gang members, such as terror. You know, this room to me represents the fulfillment of a dream that many of us had in the early 90s when gangs were emerging as a public safety threat here in the greater Houston area. And there was a lot of community awareness that needed to be built about the clear and present danger that gang members pose in a community. They create more fear in a community than the average criminal, which makes them do greater damage. The ultra-violence shown in their murders, the way they murder people, beheadings, machetes, shooting them dozens of times, are purposeful. And that's to instill fear in a community. And what this group represents, to me, is hope for our communities, to show people here in the greater Houston area and all across the nation that while gangs may be transnational and international, so is law enforcement. And that we're willing to work together, that you don't see the selfishness of power or the dysfunction that used to occur decades ago when people were more interested in keeping facts close to their chest instead of working with their law enforcement partners. We evolved too, and we're rising to the challenge that criminal gangs represent. And I think our communities that serve on our juries will respond accordingly. And I have confidence in the Fort Bend District Attorney's Office and in our own gang prosecution unit led by Lisa Collins and other prosecutors in our office, which show a commitment of resources, which are few these days in government often. They're few, and their assignment permanently to the Texas Anti-Gang Center reflects my commitment, our police and law enforcement partners' commitment to going after the worst of the worst. And that's who terror and MS-13 represent to us. They are substantively, by the evidence, found to be the most serious type of threat group by our Department of Public Safety, our state police. That can't be ignored. That has to be met with the application of resources, and that requires commitment by leadership. And I want our Houstonians and people in this area to know we're committed to your safety. And so we're working together, we're working smartly, we're using technology, and we're using, you know, the most important thing to forget is good old-fashioned police work, hard work. A patrol officer making the initial stop and basically starting what came to be a 45-day or less from murder to conclusion wrap on this case. It used to take months, sometimes years, and sometimes murders were never solved like this. Well, that's not the case anymore. And I think that for those who are trying to extend their authority, like MS leaders in El Salvador, by giving green lights for hits here, they can expect us to return it in kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. With that, we'll just open up to any questions before we wrap it up.
Yeah, Chief, can you elaborate on how exactly you tracked him, or the law enforcement agencies tracked him to Virginia?
I can tell you that our patrol officer developed a witness here that provided information that led us to Virginia. But obviously, I think you all know, I've been here for 8 months now, I'm not going to talk about the methods or what we did to find them, because we want to make sure we don't hurt our chances of finding the next cowardly murderer that leaves our area. Anything else?
Do you have other gang members up there, or how is he in Virginia? What was he doing? Where was he?
We're not going to talk about that part of the investigation. Anything else? Let me just add something. You know, we keep talking about SB4 coming up, and we talk about combating violent extremism in our country. That's something at the national level we're talking a lot about with our federal partners, the CVE efforts. And when you marginalize young people, you make them feel they're not fully welcomed and part of our society, you start creating environments that helps create a perfect environment for people to be seduced by these criminal gangs. And quite frankly, next Tuesday, we will be meeting here in Houston PD. We will be hosting the Major City Chiefs Criminal Intelligence Commanders Group. They will all be here from around the country. Major City Chiefs from the first Vice President of that organization and the Homeland Security Committee Chair will be meeting here next week to talk about information sharing, improving the information sharing environment. I'm really proud of the fact we've been working with the Department of Homeland Security for about 9 years, and now the FBI headquarters has completely committed to creating a automated information sharing environment for our intelligence commanders group, because we know that these transnational gangs, these street gangs, these criminal enterprises are mobile. We know that they have their tentacles reach out from Houston to places across the country and south of the border into Mexico, Central and South America. So if they're going to be mobile, we have to be able to connect those dots nationwide. So next week, not only will we be hosting the Major City Chiefs Intelligence Commanders group on Tuesday, we will also be having a meeting with Assistant Director Carrie Sleeper of the FBI. As you know, the President Trump and the Attorney General really want to focus on violent crime nationwide, and has really provided direction to assist the state and locals. And so FBI will also be here with us looking at our best practices here as a region, because I think we really are a model for a lot of parts of the country, and also to talk about finishing up that intelligence sharing environment, automated intelligence sharing environment that will absolutely assist our phenomenal detectives in actually being able to connect some dots and get these criminals off of our streets. So, any other questions for any of us? Yeah. Anything in English before I go? And I'll go to Spanish. We'll wrap it up.
Chief, he's charged with capital murder. Is that correct?
We got 2 charges of capital murders, and I think by the time that we're done, there'll be additional charges.
Can you give us some of his background when he came to the country?
I don't have any of that.
But he wasn't one of these marginalized individuals that you're talking about.
I can tell you that when you start looking at whether it's homegrown extremists, or you're talking about people that have been radicalized overseas, when you marginalize people, guess what you open up? The door to seduction. And when you look at the what I would say the rhetoric in our country as it relates to people based on religion, the nations of origin, that's not helpful. We have got to get the trust of people, and we've got to make people feel like they're, and I'm not making any excuses for these people. I'm going to just make that real clear. But, you know, criminals aren't born, right? Every child that comes on this earth is pretty innocent, and at some, and they're going to reach a path. They're going to reach a fork, and I think the more we do to make sure when they reach that fork in the roadway, that we as a society do everything we can to get people to make the right turn and not the wrong turn in their lives. Because if you look back at a lot of these people, when they had nowhere else to go, guess what they were seduced by? Street gangs, the MS-13s, radical Islam. You cannot marginalize, you cannot make people feel that they're not welcome. Can't push people into the shadows. They need to be full participants in the American dream. Anything else? And then I'll go to Spanish.
You said in June that you were going to change the hours that gang officers were working. Could you talk a bit about what effect that's happening?
Well, let me just say that Today's date is August 4th. We're well over halfway through the year. We're in the fastest growing big city in the country. We're a police department that is, probably close to 2,000 officers short. Thankfully, we have a mayor and Sylvester Turner and a council that tries to be supportive because of this revenue cap. Without relief from that revenue cap, we're never going to get resourced the way we need to be resourced. But despite that, we have moved our resources around. Our detectives are working different hours. We're very much have turned into a data-driven, intelligence-led police department. Our gang units are working weekends, they're working nights, the days. And again, I don't want to criticize the officers, because the officers, they run the play that we that wear the stars call, and they run it to the best of their ability. As of today, we're down 41 homicides compared to last year. Now, part of that's luck, but a big part of that is that the way that we're approaching aggravated assaults, which are really attempted murders, that we're not just having patrol officers that are already overwhelmed because of their lack of resources, lack of numbers. We actually have our major offenders night squad. We have a citywide criminal apprehension team. We're doing a lot of things to leverage the limited resources that we have, and more importantly, to make sure that we're deploying them as efficiently, as smartly as possible. So we've always worked hard. We're now working smarter, which is, I think, the difference so far.